Welcome, everybody, to week 15 of the Hot Route and what may be the toughest week of DFS season-long betting we've had of the year, as new COVID stuff seems to be outbreaking all across not only NFL, but NBA, NHL, all kinds of stuff. So definitely the later you can stay engaged this week, the better. Last-minute news will be crucial. If you decide to play, I can see some people just saying, forget it. I'm going to allocate elsewhere and take my chances. That certainly is viable. I know season long's tough. I talked about it yesterday because you don't have, at least in DK, we kind of know at some point we'll know the final rosters and you can just move around between the teams. But season long, you only got so many pickups you can do. And by this time, the player pool and the free agency is crap. So going to be a very difficult week. Going just a little bit later today. I put my rankings out later. I mean, we're trying to get as much information. I put them out literally 30 minutes ago and already another potential key player out. So do our best. With me as always on this Thursday afternoon, Mr. Ryan. How you doing, sir?
Doing well, man. I'm pumped for the showdown game tonight, too, and I know we'll get into that a little bit. We got Saturday football. That's awesome. College football all day long. So it's a big sports weekend, big UFC card, 14-fighter. It'll be a fun weekend of sports. My wife and kid are gone till Sunday, so I'm going to watch.
I'm doing well. It is definitely a very unique week. Looking forward to sports per se, like you said. My kiddos are finishing school. I would say I think they finish Friday. They may be out Thursday actually. So in general, get that going. Holidays next week's going to be awesome. Weather's crazy right now all across the country. I talked about it yesterday. We've been definitely head first on the F5 tornadoes here in Moore and Norman. So scary stuff over there. Thoughts and prayers go out to everybody. Not only Kentucky, but 4 states get hit, hammered. In general, when you have weeks like this and we had to deal with this last year, but I think we kind of had this comfort zone and this year, you have one here, one there you got to deal with. What, does it make you change your bankroll strategy, or do you think there's an advantage there if you grind it out? What do you think when we have this kind of situation we got going on?
That might be tougher where it becomes like a 1v1, 2v2 type thing. And those weeks sometimes are a little tougher to get to the cash line. I think Saturday's slate, and you and I talked about it a little bit earlier, that might be one where I pull back a little bit because there's not many good places to go there. I think it'll be a lot of chalk, but I think it's a lot of good chalk that can hit. So it's hard to really differentiate yourself. So depending on what you're playing, one thing I might do is play, I think there's more of an edge like in the smaller field tournaments. So not like, I think there might be a lot of splits is what I'm saying. So if you're playing for that top prize, it might be a little tougher to kind of be unique, where if you're on the smaller fields, I kind of enjoy those a little bit more for these two gamers.
Yeah, even like college football, these first several bowl slates, I was talking to Bobby last night about it. I'll look at, sometimes I may just go, I'm just going to play stuff to try to get tickets for the big New Year's Eve or New Year's Day, Big Six. There'll be a ton of satellites for their $20 ticket or $25 ticket. They'll start doing satellites for the big national championship showdown, which, normally has a big, and I may, because there you're not really grinding a big prize or trying to, go up against a big field. And not that you have to do that with NFL, obviously a little bit different situation, but, by now I normally have most of my stuff figured out and routine and what I play. But as we sit here, several hours before tonight's game, I haven't reserved anything and I'll sit down. I've started sitting down this morning, and then this afternoon, I'll kind of game plan out the whole weekend and go, all right, where do I feel comfortable in the spots I have? And, my biggest thing is, one, don't get cute on stuff. And two, don't feel like you have to force it. I think some people forget, and I do this at times, that there's still going to be bigger college football slates. There's going to be playoff football, which we have isolated, teams and situations that you can take advantage of. Christmas Day, you'll have NBA if you're on that. I know that's a big day, but we actually have, I don't know if it's 2 or 3 games next Saturday, but you'll have another Saturday slate, another Sunday slate. Like, unless you feel like you got a pretty good leverage in doing it, I normally tell people, do what's comfortable. But you don't have to use your normal if you don't. Or if you see a good edge and you go, man, I think this is going to happen, I don't really care, by all means, definitely a slate you can take advantage of. Before we get into those, as always, Listener League is in the link is in the description. Let's get that filled up. 3 Max. Rate and reviews on iTunes. We'll be doing a bunch of giveaways as we turn the calendar to 2022. We march towards the Daytona and the Masters and TPC. Some big events in those first few months when it comes to NASCAR and golf. And of course, we still got, a full month of NFL there in January before the Super Bowl. Like and subscribe on YouTube. In the comment section, tell me your favorite Christmas tradition. I'll be doing some giveaways next week for Christmas. And most of it's going to be people that has done those 2 things for us. Rate and review on iTunes, subscribe to our channel. And I'll probably pull the last 3 weeks of comments because I know I hadn't done a giveaway in a little bit. Things have been a little bit busy and crazy trying to get the back end of the business and then working on stuff for you guys for next year. So tell me your favorite Christmas tradition. That'll get you into the drawing for next week for Christmas Day or next weekend, however you want to use it. Underdog right now, I'll throw this out there. They launched the Gauntlet NFL Playoff Best Ball, $1 million in prizes, $200K to first, a good little payout structure, $25 to enter. Use the code GUP. You get a free $100 when you deposit $100. It's a dollar for dollar match, but if you go ahead and put the 100 in, that'll get you 8 entries into that if you want. They had a wild card one earlier, but this one's a much bigger one. So I'll be probably getting into some of that. I have a few teams that advanced. How did you get a good advance rate on your? I know you did a lot on both sites. I just did underdog, but you sitting okay, or this gonna be kind of cluster.
I was like 15-ish% on DraftKings and 20-ish% on underdog. So not bad. And I looked at some of the teams. I think I got a couple really good like stacks through. Some teams that are really, really stacked on DK that have some nice matchups coming up here. So I don't know, just hoping to get lucky. Like you said, I mean, those are so top heavy. You just got to keep it going and hope you have these big weeks coming up.
Yeah, one of those survive in advance. But fortunately with that, there's no stress. Like, ain't nothing you can do with those teams. You just kind of know who you got to root for and hope you get the lucks there, especially this year with COVID and all that. You may think you have, an awesome team, and that's, if you got a good stack going in there and that team gets hit with COVID, you may be, dead to rights. So I look at it, but certainly I don't get too anxious until probably a little bit next week. But then after next week, you kind of start to get a little sweat going and look at matchups, stuff like that. We do have a 2-game slate we're going to hit on briefly like we talked about. We got the Raiders -1 now. That line's moved dramatically, obviously, with the Browns getting massive potential COVID issues. The over-unders down to 38.5. That's 19.75 to 18.75. Then we have the Colts as the night game, -2.5, 45.5 under. That is 24 Colts, 21.5 Patriots. I do like, there's some decent showdown slates. I probably won't mess with showdown at all in the first game because of the issues we already have. I like some of the payout structures in that night slate showdown. And right now, leaning towards that just being most of my bankroll, so I don't even have to think about what's going on in the Browns or the 2-game. And I kind of like some of the situations I have in the Colts game. And showdown makes it a little bit different because I agree with you. You're going to have spots here. Jonathan Taylor. Like if you want to be just different, you can fade him. I don't know if I can do that. The hardest part for me, and you nailed it in your write-up, is Belichick's best thing, and I've talked about it many times this year, is he wants to take your best piece out. So I'm assuming he's going to do everything possible to stop Taylor and make Wentz beat him. Colts are at home, but Taylor's had some of that seasons that no one's really stopped him, and he does get involved in the passing game more and more. We'll get to the Browns-Raiders situation in a second, but what do you think about that game in general and some of the, Taylor being a lock, potential Mac Jones? I think he's the cheapest quarterback. A lot of people may go there. The Colts secondary is probably their weakest part. Definitely higher scoring game right now as it looks in Vegas with all the issues.
Yeah, like when I do my matchup prep sheet, I normally do it for the main slate, but I included these 2 Saturday games in it this week, and the both of these games actually showed up really well as far as game stacks, but that doesn't take into account all the COVID shit. So that's just what they've done. It's all numbers based. So what's cool about the Patriots Colts game is that they have everybody. So it's all the guys. So the fact that that game showed up pretty well, I think we could see some points in this game. And that makes me like Carson Wentz a little bit more too. That and the fact, like you said, Belichick will try to take away the best thing. I don't think he's really going in there thinking, Wentz can beat him. So he's going to try and make Wentz beat him. So if you do get a good Wentz game, I mean, the receivers are all priced down just because he kind of spreads the ball out. Pittman's only 59 is like the wide receiver one there. And then I would say this, like, it's tough to fade Taylor. And so if I was doing – 3 lineups or something, I wouldn't. But if I'm making 20 lineups or more, like, you never play for injuries. But in a short 2-game slate like this, like, sometimes you can just get lucky. And so if you do have a few lineups that don't have these obvious studs, perhaps, they do sprain an ankle. They do something like that. So, like, if Nick Chubb rolls his ankle on the first play and you get D'Ernest Johnson for the entire game, I mean, in a 2-game slate and you're making enough lineups where you're comfortable spending the money on that, then that could be a way to just make yourself different and gain a ton of leverage on everybody. Not something that, again, if you're playing a main lineup of cash, something like that, obviously you go with the studs and you don't ever play, like they're going to get hurt. But those are just a few things I noticed when I'm looking here. But I like how there's no news, like you said, Patriots Colts, kind of like tonight's game. You can start building now, and start thinking about different ways to build your lineups. And I like that.
Yeah, I think the other chalk piece, regardless what happens I think the Raiders in general will probably be somewhat chalky because they don't really have any potential. I think there'll be a ton of lineups that have Renfro Taylor, just out the gate. Chubb potentially, depending on how that situation goes out. It looks like Hunt is doubtful. If he's out, I don't mind having some Johnson. I don't think he's necessarily the Hunt backup. I think he's more of a Chubb backup. And then the tight end situation in this whole slate, if you do the 2-game slate, is very, you may be down to Bryant's back. It looks like for Cleveland, but Hooper may be out, and don't know if Njoku's coming back. So that's if there's only one, that's a good situation. Waller looks doubtful. But Moreau's not anymore. I mean, he's questionable, so you could see there. But the next game, you have multiple tight ends that could each have a good game, like you mentioned. Henry, and then Dole and Ali Cox. Makes it difficult because you have to lock it in a main slate atmosphere, not showdown. Some tight end, so that could be a place to pick. I love Peoples-Jones. I talked about him a ton last week. He did just fine. What'll probably decide to me, and I don't know when they actually will start listing these guys officially out, is how much information we have, whether it be Saturday morning or Friday night. Like if Baker's out, like I love Keenan at 4.8. I just don't know how popular he would become all of a sudden. Because it's not like I don't think however the slate pays out, I don't think they're gonna have to like save money to even if you use Taylor, and so. Right. You don't have to go down to a Keenum to get all the lineup builds you want because you potentially could have all kinds of, min-price guys who are going to be starting. So that could be a way to be different. I do like Pittman. You mentioned that. And then I think I'm going to do like I did on Thanksgiving. I plan to for this 2-game, assuming we get the information, we need to make it. I'm just not one of those guys that believe in throwing out stuff, Tuesday, Wednesday for, any podcast prior to today is got to be almost irrelevant. Nothing against them. I mean, people got to do it. I get it. But, I like to try to get the information out. I was trying to think, okay, so it doesn't start at noon. It is a 3:37:20. So we'll have plenty of time Saturday morning to we should get most of the information. I'll probably throw together that kind of showstoppers 2-game format that I've done in the past, similar to the Turkey Day stuff. So be sure to check that out. We'll definitely be all around the GC Warrior Room Saturday between college football and NFL, and we'll update. Everybody will be on top of that. That's a good resource if you are a premium member. As always, you can use the code HOT, get 20% off. It includes a 7-day risk-free trial. A lot of football. Like you mentioned, another great UFC card Saturday. Tons of football over the next week, so good time to come check that out and start getting used to the golf tools if you're anxious to check out all of our the Green Machine Optimizer, plus all of our golf tools that we'll be looking to update as well. Main slate, we got 11 games. No bye weeks this week. That's probably the positive. We'll get the positives out of the way. We don't have to worry about that. I guess another positive is Browns is probably one of the worst situations, and they're not on the main slate, so that helps a little bit. I do think it's going to be a tricky Sunday in the sense I always go back to my my handicapping part, and you got 7 home favorites and a pick 'em. So call it 8 out of 11 games. The home team's either favored or a pick 'em. Coming off a week where I think it was 10-2 on Sunday, the favorites covered. It lines up for just a nasty public gets smashed type Saturday. Now, how's that translate into DK? It doesn't per se, but I do think there are spots there where you can look at where could a upset or a potential non-public type situation happen that give you a leverage on especially 11 game slate. Our biggest COVID worries here, correct me if I'm wrong, are the Washington football team, and there's one more that's dealing with the Rams. Is that right?
Well, Miami.
Oh, now Miami. Yeah, that one's come as of late. Potentially Miami as well.
Yeah, Rams too, but like some guys in the Rams came back, and then like Odell's gone would be the biggest name, or he might. I mean, he's one of those guys just like everyone else, where he gets the 2 negatives, no symptoms within 48 hours, and he can play. So we'll see. Other than that, I don't think like anyone's been decimated. Like Washington they have a ton of people that could miss.
And Heineke's questionable, but for knee, not COVID, right?
Yes.
Yeah, so I mean that's one to keep an eye on. If you're an MME guy, and I do MME, I do both on NFL typically. I mean, you have to have all hands on deck Sunday morning to be ready. If you're a 1-3 max type guy, and maybe if you are an MME guy, you just go to 1-3 max, which I wouldn't hate this week because you have less moving and switching, or at least you could build like 3 different what if type builds for your 3 maxes. This guy's out, I'll do this type of situation, maybe it makes it a little bit easier than trying to, if you're building 150 lineups, or if you do, I'd have definitely different builds ready based on the key people you're focusing on. Some of these you may not, I'm not even on the Dolphins, so it doesn't matter to me, or I'm not going to have any Washington, regardless what happens, doesn't matter to me. Perfectly fine. But if you are, I definitely make sure I'm around and ready to go. Sunday morning is going to be a busy morning waiting on some of this information. And the one thing I hadn't even said, it could get worse for some of these teams. We could have more, contact tracing and stuff like that. We're going to go with what best we got here around, noonish my time on a Thursday. I'll update as much as I can on the coin flip, and then we'll update the articles Saturday and Sunday and be in there Sunday morning and Saturday for that matter with the 2 game. With any updates we can. We'll kick it off with Cowboys at Giants, 27.75, 17.25. Cowboys a big road favorite. I got a feeling it could be a good Dak game. It just seems like a lot of times all I've heard on any show I've even tuned into it all is what's wrong with Dak? Is Dak this? They're asking Jerry Jones, is he hurt? He looks off. Typically, players, especially of his caliber, and I'm not saying he's one of the best, but he is a top tier quarterback in my opinion. They get tired of that shit, and it couldn't be a better place to try to get better than the Giants. Going on the road doesn't necessarily help, but running backs are still kind of banged up. We don't know what's going on there for sure. Where do you start out this game? One of the higher, projected points total are decent, especially for the Cowboys. They're one of the highest team totals. I'm not big on much of the Giants this week at all. It looks like Glennon's going to start again. I maybe a piece or 2 from there. They look like they're just not very good right now in general, and they're on that verge of just being done for the season. Cowboys need obviously they looked great for a long time last week, and the ending made it look horrible. But I don't mind going back to some Cowboys stacks if people are just going to completely ignore it.
Yeah, I'm all about the Cowboy passing game here as well. So I love Lamb and I love Gallup. Gallup's only 5,500. I just think it could be one of those games where he catches one of the long TDs and then from his out, he's seen a lot of volume this year. So I think Dak really likes throwing the ball. One thing about the Giants is they don't get any pressure on the quarterback, so he should have all day to kind of stand back there and pick apart this defense. It might be like a nice kind of get right game for him after he made some mistakes last week. And then the thing in the backfield is like both these teams, it's so weird. You have Zeke on one side and Barkley on the other, and they're both splitting carries with backs that you would never imagine them splitting carries with Booker and now Clement. Clement out-touched Zeke last week, and it's just like for 4,300, I actually don't even really mind it. Looks like Pollard's going to miss again. Zeke's wearing the knee brace and stuff. Like, he just doesn't look right. So it's kind of like what I said. You never play for an injury or anything like that. But what if, he can't go or, he runs the ball a couple times and he's out? Clement only 4,300 in this. Like, this is a fucking awesome matchup. I like Clement, obviously for tournaments only. But, yeah. And then if Daniel Jones does start, I think he's, like, limited in practice. I wouldn't really count on him starting. I think he got a second opinion on his neck. But if he does, I might throw a piece or two in there. The Giants, he's really had a good connection with Shepard. Shepard's still dirt cheap. And now he's like, 1 week removed off. He came back last week, so it should be a little healthier. I do like Shepard if Jones is out there.
Yeah, and keep an eye on the Pollard deal. I think he may press to play a little bit, and I wouldn't be shocked if they sit Zeke for the most part if Pollard's healthy and good to go, and try to let that knee heal up for the playoffs. Obviously, they don't want to go all in on Clement if Pollard's out again. So that a running back situation, however it shakes out, like you said.
What's weird is like I think they would almost rather save Pollard for the playoffs than Zeke at this point. It's like he's just better. So I don't know. It's weird. But I don't know. I don't know if he's practicing or not. I got to look at that. I think he missed yesterday. But, yeah, we'll see.
Yeah, I know he returned. I know he practiced today for sure with limited. That doesn't mean anything, but he's at least back on the field. Something to keep an eye on because I like it. I guess my only fear, and it'll be more MME for me for the Cowboys stack at quarterback is – they're not afraid to run the ball. And I mean, typical, kind of reminds me of Lincoln Riley and even Stoops at times, the conservativeness, and almost bit him in the ass last week is, when they get up, they get really conservative, and that would worry me some because, they'll just turn around and hand it to two of the backs back and forth. And that would really hurt Dak if they got up early. But, I can see the Giants still putting up somewhat. And ironically, they're worse at home than on the road. So I think the Cowboys win pretty comfortably. I don't mind going there because I think they'll be low owned. It's a very low owned stack. I also don't mind taking some pieces, like you said, Gallup in a one-off, in your MME pools and all that kind of stuff where you don't need to go all in on this game. Obviously, I'll still take CD if I'm going to go, pay up for a guy could be low owned. We'll see on – I like the passing. This sounds weird. I like the passing game better if Pollard's in because I think the Giants have to respect it a little more, like you mentioned. And then it could open up things better for Prescott to throw play action and stuff like that. The thing that gets me positive on it, and we'll move on, is like they want to build confidence in Prescott right now. So I this would be a game to build his confidence, get him.
That's what I thought too. Like this is a good with time to throw, no pass rush on you. Like this is a good game to go out there and put up, 250 to 300, 3 TDs, and call it a day. And and I think they'll be in great if Glennon starts. I mean, that offense is fucking terrible with Glennon. So like I think they'll be in really good field position all day if Glennon's out there, and I think he will, like you said.
Texans at Jaguars, 21.75, 18.75. Not the one that jumps off the page at you. I think the news late last night, early this morning, depending on where you are, on our boy getting fired, Urban Meyer. Obviously, I think the reaction for the public is instant because this line's already moved up 2 points today. I was on the Texans before the news, and now I'm like, I don't think I've ever seen a coach get fired and the line go up because he got fired. But I get if it was that nasty inside of there and these players are like, all right, shit, he's gone, let's go ball out. There's no better team probably in the, well, maybe the Jets to try to go do that against than the Texans. So I could see that. You know, do we think this gets popular on Sunday as far as people, that narrative going up? You know, all right, now they're going to unleash Trevor. James Robinson could actually be used like he should be all year. Treadwell, we've been on for weeks. You started it 3 weeks ago or so, and I played him every week since then. Or is there too much hype there? And I go, David Mills has looked all right, 5,400. Yeah, no, I don't know. I mean, my game, the whole thing changed for me when he got fired because I had a set script. Texans were going to be on the card at 3.5, and people would say, well, why wouldn't you take them at 5.5 now? I was like, man, I've been around those situations, and it can go one or the other way, and everything tells me that, like, you got former Jaguars tweeting stuff, talking shit about Urban Meyer and, you know, today and stuff. So it makes me think like that whole culture is going to have an uplift. And it sounds like they love the D coordinator, and they've been, you know, the defense has been pretty good. I mean, for all things considering, you know, I don't know. Do they get a spunk of energy and you're all in on it? James Robinson, is he going to be high owned at 5,400?
Yeah, I think like that's the main thing. So this news puts James Robinson, also too, Hyde is in concussion protocol. So James Robinson's like, I mean, I hate saying lock, but like he's like the cash lock of the week. He'll be the highest owned player in cash, I think, especially with this news and in this matchup. And I mean, you heard Trevor Lawrence say too, like we will not win until all the drama leaves or something like that. So now you have your rookie quarterback who moron, you know, Meyer put him in a QB competition with Gardner Minshew in the preseason. I mean, like, how stupid is that? And now he's just got this weight off his shoulders. So I agree. Like, I think the whole atmosphere there is just has been uplifted, and I think that they'll play much better, especially since now, like, James Robinson's our guy. Let's go out there. Lawrence also said he thinks Robinson needs to play more. So now that Urban's gone, this is I think that's what's gonna happen, and they will play much better. On the other side of the ball, I do like Davis Mills a lot. He in this matchup, not like anywhere, but him and Cooks, you know, for 54 and 58, that's not a bad little run back. And I don't know how popular it'll be. I mean, if you want to get different too, you know, you can even play Robinson and Lawrence together. Last time Robinson didn't have a great game against these guys, it was week 1, but that was Trevor Lawrence's best game of the year. I think Marvin Jones hit 100 yards, scored a touchdown. They just played really well, again, because it's the Texans defense. So it's like a classic battle. They're 32nd and 31st in offensive drive success, but they're both bottom 5 on defense as far as expected points allowed. So it's like, I think the offenses can overcome it, and I think it's kind of a sneaky spot when you start to look at all the overall game stacking ownership on the slate. I think these guys will be down there minus, you know, James Robinson chalk.
Yeah, I liked the Jags a lot last week, but as we got closer to Sunday, I didn't like, obviously that news came out Saturday about the locker room issues and the calling this coaches idiots and losers and all that stuff. So anytime I hear that stuff, I just stay away from DraftKings purposes. But I still think like some of the things that make me like a Lawrence even more than a Mills is, I don't know. And one thing I hadn't researched yet, because I spent all morning trying to chase COVID stuff, was who stayed, is who's calling the plays now, who, you know, because I know Urban had a big say so on what was called and all that, obviously. You got to get Trevor on the move. Like he can run. and, you know, so now you get a home game. You'll probably have the most fans you've had all year because of this.
Yeah.
And, you know, $5,100, you know, 30, 40 rushing yards. He throws for, you know, and this is a great matchup, not to mention, you know, as far as who to get, you know, have a, you know, stick it up Urban's, you know what, as far as, you know, we got talent here enough, especially with a fairly decent defense to keep you in games. You know, they go out and score 24, 28 points. And not that that's world beating, but at these prices, you go Lawrence, Robinson, Treadwell, you know, and then maybe mix in Marvin Jones, Shenault at times. You know, do they start using Shenault like they should be using them all year? You know, these things are unknown, but if it's ever time to try, like, especially if you're going like Millie Maker type stuff and you go like a heavy jack or even this game script, you know, and run it back with Cooks, who should still do well against the Jaguars, I certainly don't mind doing some of that Sunday by any means. And this is a game, as far as now, we have no worries about COVID or anything. So I like it. I don't think it's going to stick out too much. I do think, I still don't so many people going to like Trevor Lawrence or David Mills for their, their lock core on Sunday. So Robinson, yes. But, if you're pairing them with Lawrence and stuff, it's going to make it unique because most people are just going to go take Robinson and move on, right? Maybe
I keep saying that every week.
Cooks.
Yeah.
Yeah,
every week
Robinson
I keep saying the same thing. Like you look at Taysom and Kamara last week, and I know Taysom got bailed out at the end, but like no one wants to play quarterback with running back.
Yep.
Look at Brady and Fournette. Look at all these things. They do correlate. How many games has Herbert and Eckler crushed? And I'm not saying these guys are that, but you're getting a $2,000 discount on both of them.
Right.
So, and they're playing the Texans. So yeah, I totally agree. That's one way to be very different and still get your Robinson shares.
Well, and your call there made my best lineup of the day. Like I enforced that. When I played Hill, I made sure Kamara was in the lineup, and my best 3-max lineup ended up being that because they both wind up getting what they get 50, 60 combined or something. I know at least 50.
Yeah, so, they were over 50.
Yeah, I don't know that I would have done that on my own, but so I agree there. People don't. You can still get in the chalk and be different with one move, and everybody's gonna play James Robinson. There ain't that many people gonna play Lawrence Robinson. Whatever. People are going to go Robinson Cooks from that game, a little mini stack and move on. That's what most people will do.
Yeah.
So, could this game be 13-10? Sure. But if you're in those big fields, this is a way to take advantage of a situation. Next game, Titans at Steelers, 21.75, 19.75. This is steaming towards a pick 'em now. A lot of money coming in on the Steelers. A lot of sharps are on the Steelers this week. I don't know. I don't know if I'm there yet. The Titans are not great without Henry, and Julio didn't do much. They still don't have A.J. Brown, but Big Ben's Big Ben. Now they look like garbage coming out. Then they made a big rally versus the Vikings on Thursday Night Football. They did get 10 days rest. I don't like much out of this game as far as this slate particularly. I could go a little Najee just because he gets so much volume, and Deontay is always in play as a one-off. That's about it for me. I don't like much else.
Yeah, it's funny you use the word steaming when you mention the totals here because it's a steaming pile of shit as far as I'm concerned. I'm not interested in anything here really. I like the volume on the Steelers because you know exactly where the ball's going, but you try to look at the Titans. Last week that was the spot for Julio to kind of get right his first game back. 5,400 or like mid fives wherever he was. I don't even think he was targeted in the second half. Maybe that was something to do with game script, but still, like he did nothing with the targets he saw anyways. And then you have the split in the backfield now as a 3-way split. So you don't want to look there. And Tannehill looks like garbage. So it's like I don't want to do that on the road in Pittsburgh. But for Pittsburgh, it's Najee, Deontay, and Freiermuth, and that's it. So, any of those three guys I like looking at. The tight end, he's cheap enough to look at in cash as well. And, he's seen a ton of targets. So I like those three. And then this is a weird slate too. There's not a lot of like stud running backs that see 25 touches. So I know the matchup isn't great, but Najee has overcame that quite a bit this year. So that's someone I definitely want to focus on. One for cash and then two just on the slate in general. Anyone that can touch the ball 25 times, their ceiling's incredible. So for 7,800, I'm in on that.
Yeah, we definitely lost. Tonight you got Eckler, you got Chubb at times. Obviously Jonathan Taylor. Sunday night you got Fournette and Kamara. Monday night Cook. Montgomery gets his fair share. Normally, so a lot of good running backs are not on the main slate. To your point, that's enough on that game. Those three, maybe the tight end. I didn't really look at him, but definitely Harrison, just because of the usage. I could use him in MME, and that's about it. Cardinals at Lions, 30.5, 17 for the Lions. The Cardinals and Bengals last week kept me from having. I had a great week last week, 8-2 in the bets. But I had a lot of round robin parlays that hit most of them. But man, if those two, especially the big Bengals one, that one was. I'm sitting there with 5 minutes left, and I thought the Bucks were locked in. I was down to the Bucks and Bengals from hitting an 8-way round robin. parlay bet, and those were the last two pieces. And within 2 minutes, all of a sudden the Bucks were on. I don't know if they're going to cover, and the Bengals look good. They both go to overtime and got lucky with the Bucks on he breaks one instead of getting a field goal because it was a 3-point line or 3.5 in some spots. But I think I'm interested on the Cardinals. This for me, it may be a buy high or buy low. You got Detroit. They're still fighting and scratching and clawing. I give them all that credit. I wish that I don't think Kyler's hurt. I heard some things coming out of the game. Now, I think Connor potentially could be. He obviously looked like he was hurt. That could barely make it for the final snap. But I don't put much into that loss as far as, if they played again tomorrow, I'd still like the Cardinals a little bit because I felt like everything went the Rams' way and they still had to hold on at the end to get the win. I like the Rams. I don't mind it at all, but I don't know how many people are going to jump back to the Kyler situation, but now you got him as a 14, 13-point favorite on the road against not a great team, and I think he could have a lot of rushing yards here, especially if Connors is kind of potentially injured. I don't know where Edmonds is, and I don't know how close he was to playing. Obviously, they didn't even pull him off the IR deal last week, so I don't know if he was that close. Sounds like Nuke may be out for a while. Is this an avoid game? But the Vegas still seems to respect it, even with all that going on. There isn't much COVID here, none that I know of. But you got all these injuries on the big highest team total on the slate, I believe, by far, against obviously not so great Lions. But they are kind of, they're fighting, scratching and clawing, but they still get scored on, especially by elite teams when they play them.
Yes, I think I'm all over the Cardinals here. We just need news on the running backs. I don't know what's up with Edmonds. There's still no news that I can find on him. But I would expect him back this week, especially if Connor's not going to play. And I think he's probably trending toward doubtful at this point. He didn't practice at all today, or maybe today, but not yesterday. I know that. And then you have Hopkins now out for the regular season, where he's going to hope to come back if they make a deep run in the playoffs. So there are some cool pieces here, and I love Kyler in this matchup. So this goes back to my thing, to be a little different here. If the Cardinals are going to get, steamed up and be the super chalk playing the Lions, which most teams do get chalky that way, then you go running back, quarterback. So I love Edmonds and Kyler together if Edmonds is going to play. He's already a great pass-catching running back. He never really got the chance to run the ball too much this year with Connor there. If Connor's out, I think it's Edmonds' backfield. And then with Benjamin kind of mixing in there. If both of them are out, then I love he's min price, and I think he'd be the main man. And you pair him with Kyler, you're different, playing them both together, and I love that. And then St. Brown running it back, he's got 12 targets in 2 straight games. It seems like Goff and him have this great connection now, which we thought, being a rookie, I know we were both on him early, but he's really coming along now. He's only 5,200. That's not bad. And then A.J. Green, I think, would take over wide receiver 1 duties, him and Kirk. But your boy Rondale Moore's back out there now, 4,400. I think he'll see a couple more touches, and he's always got that ability to kind of take a big one to the house. So I think he's in play as well.
Yeah, you can see they're making a great effort to get him involved, almost like they're trying to get him a little bit like Debo. Built differently. Rondale's much faster. But I think they want to get him. They're just trying to. How can we get him involved the best way? Nuke being out kind of makes things better, especially this week. I guess my deal is if I'm going here, and I probably will. Obviously, he was the pitcher of my article, Kyler, for a reason. He's my favorite quarterback play on the slate. I don't know how many. I think a lot of people's mentality will be, I'll just play him naked because we never know where he's going. Well, now it's kind of that pulls down a little bit. I think it's. It can still be Green, Moore, and Kirk, but I think if you super stack this game, you start getting them, like you mentioned, running back, Kyler, and 2 wide receivers. I don't think a lot of people are, and we're talking about earlier, you get a chalky piece, but I don't think too many people are going to go 4 guys from the Cardinals because they're like, well, you could get busted. Kyler runs it in, yada, yada, yada. They're just so cheap, right? They don't have to have blowout games. Like if you're trying to stack the Chiefs normally or the Vikings sometimes, Thielen and Jefferson are always so high priced that the odds of both of them breaking the slate is very low. But when you get a Green, a Moore, or even a Kirk, two of those guys who are much cheaper priced, it's more odds. Now, I will say this. If Connor is out, I don't care if Edmonds is in or not. I will be so overweight on Eno. Eno is one of my favorite running backs in college. Doesn't get enough credit coming out. I think he will play a lot more of the Connor role than what some think, and Edmonds will still be the pass catching out of the backfield type. I'll be interested to hear that and listen closely. And I'm talking MMEs, like a big field. I wouldn't mind being overweight on Eno if Connor's completely out, because it's just going to be Edmonds and Eno.
Yeah, because Edmonds coming back from an injury as well, so maybe they do keep him in that limited role. So that's a good sneaky play there for min-price running back.
I mean, we know Detroit's run defense is one of the worst in the field or league, if not the worst. But I'll take all the Eno at 4K, and I still would play Edmonds. I don't care about mixing and matching those. I mean, I just would put them all in a big stack in the green machine and say, give me these rules and run it, and let it go.
Yeah.
And they're so cheap. And like you said, I loved St. Brown for a while, and certainly don't mind running it back with him in this situation, because Detroit's going to have to throw a lot to keep in this game. No doubt about that. Jets at Dolphins, our second kind of, this is the one that I guess we just got. Waddle is now potentially on the, I guess he's in the COVID protocol. Don't know his status as far as was he vaccinated, asymptomatic or whatever. 17 for the Jets at Dolphins 25.5. This was a one of my favorite spots of the week. I like the Dolphins a lot. Potentially a bet for me. That news came out. You're the one that told me right as we came on. So I liked Waddle this week. I don't hate the situation, even if it, Parker, I think, will keep coming on as he's getting back in football shape, being out so long. Gaskins looks like he's back activated, according to the number one beat writer for the Dolphins yesterday. I expect him to be back in play because of that. So still pieces here I like. I guess you could run it back with Crowder. Elijah Moore got moved to the IR out of nowhere last week because after the pod, I liked him a lot. I don't mind having some mini stacks for Dolphins. What about you?
Yeah, I love the Dolphins here. I love Tua's projected pass volume every week. They sling the ball around. It's nice. With Waddle out, I was already on Parker at 4,300 for cash, and now I'm guessing he'll be kind of right there with Robinson as one of the highest owned cash pieces there is. So that's kind of what I was saying earlier about cash this week. It's going to be like super chalky. We're going to have to find at least one or two ways to be a little different to make sure we win again. But I do like Parker a lot. I love Gesicki a ton now with Waddle out. I just think he'll get peppered with targets. I mean, he already does from Tua, but now it's just, next level. And then Gaskin. We were on Gaskin last time they played the Jets. I think he had 18 or 19 DK points. And then all the other running backs, except for, if he's back, I think the only other active guy would be Duke Johnson. You can watch videos of Duke Johnson just running into the back of his offensive lineman over and over and over again. So I just don't think he's a threat at all. It'd be nice to see Gaskin get all the work plus more of that pass down work to raise his floor and ceiling. So if he is back, I would include Gaskin into the cash consideration as well. He's not in there now, but once we know he's back and I see who else is active, it makes sense. And then I like teams that blitz a lot, like the Dolphins, that put a lot of pressure on. We actually called this one last time. I think Flacco was quarterback then, but I'm not sure. But we called Crowder those quick dump-offs. He scored a touchdown in that game, had 40, 50 yards receiving. He's only 5K, so that's another way to kind of run it back on him.
Yeah, and I wouldn't be surprised. I definitely wouldn't play Duke, but I wouldn't be surprised if they don't give the rookie out of Florida State, Doak, some touches if they need to give Gaskin a breather. Not that I'd play Dokes, but Duke's not any kind of upside. They might as well get their rookie some touches if they're that depleted at running back. And one thing I'd advise with Waddle out, I don't necessarily boost like an Albert Wilson or a Mac Hollins. Probably favor Hollins a little bit there. I think to your point, it just enhances. They'll be going Gaskin out of the backfield, Gesicki get more targets, Parker, a lead, and just, their usage would go up. And yeah, you could play a min price Hollins if you want. I don't know that you need to here. There's so many cheap options on the slate. But, and that's just something I wouldn't automatically. A lot of times people see Waddle out and they're, well, who's the next up? Not necessarily in this situation. Tua is a guy that likes his targets. He had that at Bama. He knew where he was going. You can see it all the time. His usage, he doesn't move around a lot. He's going to go to his number 1, 2, and 3, and that's it. So
I think he can play the slot too. So like
correct.
a lot of times you can throw like big Mac Hollins on the outside, Parker on the other side, and Gesicki will just man the slot. So it's like he's very versatile like that. So that's why I love him even more now too as well.
Yeah, and Hollins, definitely more of a boomer bust, touchdown type guy, but you could play him. I'm not saying that. Throw him in your mix and match. If you're doing stacks, he's going to be whatever, min or 3,400. But I wouldn't just go all in on something like that because I think it'll just boost. If Gaskins is back, which it looks like he is, Gesicki and Parker, I think, would be the load there to load up on. And I don't know. We don't know yet. I don't know if you even got to figure out if Waddle is vaccinated and asymptomatic, he can double test negative and be back Sunday. So I don't know if he's officially out yet. Keep an eye on that. Washington football team at Philadelphia. This line is up to, I think, 7 now. 26-19 or something like that. I think it's the new implied total. It keeps going up. Washington is the last major team on the slate with potential COVID issues, and Heineke is questionable because of his knee, not COVID. So all kinds of issues there for Washington. They were a team I liked I did my early look lines, not factoring in COVID or any of that, and I kind of like the setup for them coming off the, big hyped up game of the Cowboys. They lose, they look ugly. Everybody's going to run the Eagles. Well, Hurts is kind of banged up still. I don't know he wants to play. It's a high ankle sprain. It's still a little, if he was Brady, whatever, tape it up and let him throw. But his biggest strength is those legs. And, Minshew looks so good. Best scenario here, DK wise, would be Hurts is out. Minshew's our starter, and we're going to let him rest up this week. If not, I would be scared to go to Hurts because I'm afraid a tweak here or this or that. Minshew comes in. They may mix and match 2-quarterback system. I don't know. There's so much unknown there. And then with the Washington side of it, you're just going to have to wait on COVID stuff. Gibson, obviously, there at $6K, worth a look. But what we don't want is cluster of injuries. If you want to getting 2 or 3 O-linemen or this or that out because of COVID, well, now Gibson doesn't look good at all because he's just going to get, hammered all, they're just going to tee off on him all the game. So kind of an iffy game for me. Is this a noon start or is it we flipped over to the 3:30? It is.
I think this is an early. That's an early game.
Yeah, early game. So at least we'd have clarity before the main slate kicks off. So that's one we'll talk about Sunday morning as well. Anything else on that? Your thoughts?
Heineke, I did see practiced, so I think he'll play. And then I'd like this as, like you said, I kind of liked Washington here. One thing that kind of sucks is McLaurin didn't practice, so I think he might miss. But I like a bounce back for Gibson here. That'll be kind of my call of the week. I don't see many people going back to him on the road as dogs, but I like him to see a few more targets in the pass game. The game just got away from them last week. He lost a fumble, just kind of, it didn't start out the way they wanted. And like you said, that game was super hyped up. He's only $6K again, and McKissick didn't practice. So if he's just got that soul roll again, we saw he's got the upside. Kind of like what I was saying with Najee, like any back that's got the upside in a decent matchup for, 25 touches, if they could see that, he can do a lot with it. So I'm back on Gibson. And like you said, I think I'll stay away from Hurts and all that. So I like the running backs here. If Sanders is healthy too, I don't mind that. He's fucking allergic to the end zone. So I'd probably just stick with Gibson. I could never play Sanders for 200 less than Gibson. I'll say that.
Yeah, and if Minshew winds up being named the starter, I think obviously it's a boost to not only Dallas but the receiving core in general against the banged up Washington team. So this could flip Sunday morning where it's one of my favorite stacks if Hurts is ruled out because it gives me clarity and I don't have to worry. And the later the news, the better when you're moving on guys, not moving off of them because most people aren't going to switch. Or they were on Hurts, so go somewhere else, so I kind of like that situation. If we get, we will know in plenty of time. It looks like Hurts is going to get the start. If he does, I don't trust it at all. I don't mind the weapons, like you said, because you hope those go off regardless. But I'd stay away from the quarterback play in general. Panthers at Bills, 16.5, 27.5, 11-point favorite for the Bills. One of my favorite plays of the week last week was Atlanta. I was in a minority there, but I'm just not a Cam guy. I didn't get the hype last week. Nothing had showed me at all that, other than he could go in, out of nowhere and run a 3-yard QB power, which is great, but that's different than winning a football game in the NFL, which he has not done. And so, and Atlanta's been hanging around. I mean, they still got, I talked about it on the pod last week. You looked at the sidelines, like Matt Ryan could be like, F this and just getting his paycheck, but they're down 30 in one game. And he's like, let's go. You could see the energy. And so love the Falcons last week. As much as I love the Falcons, I did not like the Bills, and obviously got that in a lucky way. But for 3/4 of that game, New England, Tampa Bay dominated. I don't have much in here. I know you're more of a Bills Josh Allen fan, and he gets there, and he got there last week. Panthers, I mean, they're already trying to, what do we do for next year? How do we, that new coordinator, all that kind of stuff mid-season after their bye week. It's kind of a cluster. McCaffrey's out for the season. Obviously it's probably Bills or nothing for me, but and I could see it being a popular play because of the team total. I just think there's other spots, Cardinals, stuff like that I can get much low-owned plays.
Yeah, I think the big news in this game is that Sanders is hurt and probably out. So the chalky play would be Gabe Davis at 3,700, which I don't mind for like cash because the Bills are going to throw the ball. It's just what they do. So for 3,700, I don't mind him in that role. But if you want to be different, for sure, you just don't play Gabe Davis. And there's plenty of times where one Bills receiver will be left out of the fun. So like Beasley's still only 4,900. I love Knox. He's only 5,100. And then Singletary is starting to take over the backfield again, which is something that's very interesting. If he's going to get 70% of the snaps and play all the pass downs, then I like Singletary for 5,000 because what if he does run one in? But, if he's going to get 5 or 6 targets and run the ball, 8 to 10 times, I don't mind that for 5K. He can kill you if he doesn't catch any passes. That lineup's probably dead. But for a tournament, if you're playing enough lineups, you could do a lot worse there. And Allen's 8,100 now. I mean, it'll be hard to play him over $7,900 Kyler Murray, but I think that's the general consensus. So if you want to be a little different and Allen goes out and has the 40-point game like he had last week and, Kyler only gets 25 to 30, then you won that battle for only $200 more. But for games where I want to play a little safer, I'd definitely be on Kyler. For larger tournaments, maybe, a couple Allen lineups to be a little different.
I guess my biggest worry with Allen this week, and you're right, I think Kyler may get him in the ownership because of the price discount, but let's assume they get up fairly big, and I think they will, do they call off the horses with Allen? Like, they don't want him running around on a limp foot, and I'm not saying they pull him, but, do they, which is not like them, they don't even run the ball if they're up when they're always throwing, which makes them a great play generally, but are they like, do we really want him getting beat up against the Panthers? We're up 21-3, and that kind of scenario has me thinking, when do they let him rest as opposed to anything? But certainly could be a leverage play on the slate. I get that, and I agree with on the Panthers. Did you mention? I checked out for. Did you mention playing the Buffalo defense?
Oh yeah, so they're. I meant to say that earlier about the Cowboys defense as well. If Glennon was starting, I'm all over that. And then same thing here, like Bills defense, I think will be the highest owned defense on the slate. Like 3,100 doesn't really make sense here. They're home and get to face Cam Newton and PJ Walker. I mean, we're to the point now, like you said, you just start every defense that plays these two quarterbacks.
Yep. No
matter what their price is. So 3,100 at home, that made no sense to me. And I think everyone's going to feel the same way. You're making a cash lineup, I think it's going to be hard to get away from that. You're making any lineup, it'll be hard to get away from it. But for tournaments, I would definitely recommend, pivoting just because defense is so volatile.
Yeah, they're my number one owned, and then number 2 is Dolphins at home against the Jets. So certainly, yeah, I could see that. And I've moved my number 3 to the Jaguars because they're at home, like we mentioned earlier. They're at home. They played decent defense all year. They just been on the field so much because their offense sucks that if they get rejuvenated and all of a sudden they can, tee back and actually play with the lead, which I don't know how many minutes they play with the lead this year. They could be a good play at 2,800. So those three are kind of where I'm at. And like you said, if Glennon starts, you could play Dallas. They're number 4, actually. Those are my top 4 defenses: Dolphins, Jags, Bills, Cowboys. That's probably as far as I'll go down the slate. Take my chances there, unless we get some kind of big news there. Someone starting we didn't expect. Bengals at Broncos, 21.25, 22.75. This is a very highly talked up game in the betting world this week. Bengals with the crushing loss in overtime after they stormed back. Broncos showing life, have potential to, I don't know about win the division, but definitely make the playoffs. Bengals go on the road and a team we thought we could lock in for the playoffs. Now, they're still fighting. They need wins. The division's very tight. Up in the altitude, a lot of sharps like the Broncos this week. I hadn't got there yet. Not much from the DK-wise that I like. Obviously, I'm going to play Javonte each and every week. I don't care because the price will just stay too low because Gordon's still getting looks. But even last week when Gordon got in there, when Williams was in there, it's just I don't know. I don't get it. I don't know if Gordon's got naked pictures of the coach or what, but Williams by far is the better running back. In my opinion, I'll stand by that, but I'm still going to use him at that price. I don't mind some mixing. Higgins got a bump, but still don't mind him. Chase, I think, could be a little lower owned just for the spot and situation and the price, but I can mix and match some stuff here. I don't think this is a stack 'em game for me with the other things we got going on the slate, but I can one off, any of those 3 or 4 guys for sure.
Yeah, I think this is a pretty ugly one for DFS purposes. And man, we were right about Javonte last week, but I was wrong about, my hope was that Gordon was that, active and only in there for emergencies, and shit, he was right back to the RB1A and Javonte the RB1-2. But I just can't understand it either. Williams could have ran for 250 yards last week. It's just unreal, and Gordon's banged up and they still just throw him out there and don't care. So Gordon picked up another injury too, but he's still practicing again. So now he's going to go out there and play with 3 different injuries and take these carries away from Javonte. Because that's the case, I'm with you. Go right back to Javonte, play him at 6,100. Perhaps one of the 100 injuries that Gordon has will, knock him out of the game and you get a Javonte game. The other guy, you like Chase. I like Chase too, but I like Higgins is still less money than Chase. Yep. And what I've noticed is Burrow's starting to air it out to Higgins too. He's caught a couple deep balls over the last few weeks. So I think there's he had a great connection with him already, but now there's like this deep ball connection. And I really like when I watch Higgins play, he looks awesome. Where Chase has made some kind of bonehead plays and drops and things. I don't really see that from Higgins, And then Mixon, I don't mind going there as kind of a bounce back. I think when a team struggles like they are in offense and to run the ball with Mixon like they have been, it might be one of the focuses they come back to this week. And he's 7,200. I think he'll be low owned. I'm not going to play him in cash, but for a tournament, I think the low ownership is interesting here. Yeah,
top 10 running backs. He's my lowest projected owned running back right now. By far, so definitely some leverage there.
Out of nowhere, they'll give him like 5 or 6 targets in a game, and he'll have 50 or 60 yards receiving and a touchdown. It's like maybe that's here. It's so hard to track how they're going to use their backs. So that's why I think the ownership will be where it is. But anyone that has a ceiling like him at that ownership, I'm interested.
Yeah, and low, one of the lowest game totals on the slate I think it's about right. I think, like you said, I think it's going to be a fourth quarter 2017, 23-21 type, but I think you could get some good not value, but get good spots in here. I wouldn't get too heavy in this game on any type of lineup, but definitely playable, in spots. And the Bengals' rushing defense isn't great, so it's just a matter of how much work does Javonte get. To your point, we've talked about getting lucky on injuries. Gordon may still get the start. By mid-first quarter, he's out, and all of a sudden you get 3 quarters of Williams. I'll take that risk at $6,100. So
Yeah.
Falcons at
And he
49.
has a standalone value. Yeah. So
Yes,
even
he
at
does.
61, he can still hit.
Exactly. Yeah, the price is what's in it for me, and could smash if things go the right way. So I definitely don't mind that. Falcons 18.75 at 49ers 27.25. 49ers approaching as a 10-point favorite at home. Good spot for them. Falcons coming off of a good win against the Panthers. I love Debo. I've liked him a lot this year. Mitchell, I assume will be back. I'm going to leave that to you. You follow them way closer than I do. Gage is starting to get a lot more volume, and Pitts is always viable to get in there and get some work done. I think my only note I had on this game, like I've always said, I do all my stuff, then I go read your article, is that I was surprised you didn't see much about Kittle, and so I wanted to get your point on that.
I just think this is a game that the 49ers can control the clock again. So Kittle's price, I know he's reached these ceilings lately, but I just don't see it here this week. So I kind of like the tight ends that are right underneath them. I'll just pull it up right now. So like Andrews is 1,100 cheaper, and to me they have the same ceiling every week. Like there's only a few tight ends where you can play them and realistically think they can score 30 DraftKings points. It's not like I love that Ravens game, but I just think, that's the man in that offense that could see 10 targets. And Kittle is when the game script plays that way.
Well, I think because Waddle being out, Gesicki has, I don't know about 30, but he has a lot more upside now. Yeah.
So I agree with that. And so it's mainly the price. And so I just read something too, like Mitchell, I think is probably more closer to doubtful now. I thought he was going to play. And they just can't move the ball on the ground with Wilson. So I think Debo will get some more carries. Debo's about the same price as Kittle now. And if they want to start using him in the pass game more, they can. Yeah. So in a game they can control where Debo might see some more carries, if I'm going to play a tournament play, I think I'd go with Debo. But I don't know. Now I have to kind of rethink this game because if Mitchell was out there, that's my thought, where they can just pound the ball and control the whole game. They haven't been able to do that with Wilson. So I'm going to take a closer look at it. And if I do think they can, then I think Wilson will be very low owned at 5,000. And I don't mind it here because this is the type game at home where he can rush for 100 yards and pound a TD in. And I'll be all over that for 5,000.
Yeah, I hadn't factored in Mitchell yet in the rankings because I thought I obviously had waited longer, more because of the COVID issues. But this morning I saw more doubtful, so I projected Wilson, Hasty, and Gesicki some, but Wilson being the highest of those, but still not great. So, any love for Patterson or no?
No, I kind of don't like how they're not using him in the pass game anymore. He's turned into a running back,
right?
Kind of like Debo. Like they're both. It's a weird game where you got two receivers that are going to probably get more carries than they will have catches. And I just don't think it's a good matchup for the Falcons. My worry with Patterson is that if the game does get out of hand and they're throwing a ton, that does take them out of the game if they're not using him there. So I featured Gage and Pitts here. The young corners on the Niners are getting roasted, and Pitts is lining up outside like 40% of the time. So he's going to have a size advantage, and just everyone has an advantage that lines up across from these rookies. And Gage is seeing that volume. So, I kind of like Niners run game. I like the Falcons coming back with the guys who see the most volume, and that's about it for this one. Not truly a game stack for me because I do think the Niners can control the clock.
Yeah, and Patterson's won me plenty of money this year in spots, but he was always cheaper, A, and then B, like you said, and especially DraftKings format, the PPR is so valuable that if he's not getting those, it makes his floor a lot less. And at 6,900, there's a lot better plays on the slate. Like I pay $300 more all day, every day, twice on Sunday for Mixon at this point, at a very low ownership. Now, Patterson's going to be like 2% owned, so he's certainly good MME play per se, but definitely want to see him getting more passing to bring back up that value. Two more games left. Packers at Ravens, 24 at 19. Packers road favorites, mainly and solely probably because of the unknown of Lamar and the ankle injury. killed me in a lot of stuff last week because I didn't have a ton of them, but I definitely was overweight, and a lot of it was naked. His targets did well with Huntley in there. Really got to see what goes on with him. I think, Huntley didn't look bad, and if he's a starter for 5,400, he's going to be running around. They're at home. He's probably going to have to throw it. I don't think the Packers are going to – the Ravens secondary is so beat up that, Rodgers and Adams should just eat in this game as much as they want to. The question will be is can Baltimore keep it competitive enough where they don't just turn and start handing it off to Dillon and Jones, all day long.
Yeah, it's weird that the Ravens have given up the second most pass yards a game this year, and they've given up the least amount of rushing yards a game this year. So they're just a total pass funnel defense. So that, sucks for your defense when you have Aaron Rodgers and Devontae Adams coming to town. And even guys like Lazard and Scantling have stepped it up this year and played a little better. One guy that I don't mind looking at, and it will be completely different, would be DeGuara at tight end for 2,700. He had 3 catches last week, but Rodgers has never really shied away from looking at the tight ends in the red zone, and tight ends have been eating on the Ravens this year. So I don't mind that as just if you're playing enough lineups, throw him in as a tournament flyer, and you save a ton of money there. Huntley looked okay. I don't think he's got a big ceiling, but like I said, I do like, who I like is Freeman. Freeman at 5,500. He's seeing a ton of targets out of the backfield. Murray had 1 carry last week. So I've been on Freeman for like 3 or 4 weeks now. I've been writing him up as him taking over the backfield, and he has. So, again, he'll be low owned. People don't think he has a ceiling, but for 5,500, he can reach 20 DK points, and that's great for that price. So he's someone I'd want to look at. And once we get news, he might not be cash worthy, but I'm to the point where, like, if he's seeing 5 or 6 targets a game and 15 to 20 carries, then on a slate that's this ugly at running back, I don't mind it for cash.
Yeah, and I think you could, if Huntley's named the starter, I think most people will just avoid all the weapons from the Ravens, and they really didn't take too much of a drop-off when Lamar went out. If nothing else, kind of an uptick in some spots. So I don't mind having, some Packer stacks and running it back with Freeman or Andrews or Hollywood, however you want to do it, because I don't see much of a drop-off when it comes to the weapons for Lamar, because Lamar's biggest deal is legs, and Huntley will run some. Or you go the other route. You just go, I'm going to do a little mini Ravens stack and, run it back with like Adams, who should just absolutely destroy this week. And maybe, like MVS is my favorite second throwing option for Green Bay. Like you said, the Ravens will give up passing. They're just determined to not get beat running the football. Be interested to see how they handle the rushing quarterbacks. If Lamar plays, again, he's similar to Jalen Hurts, is that, all right, how much do we trust it? And his biggest strength is his legs, and it's his leg that's hurt. So I probably back off of that scenario. I'd much rather it be Lamar's out and Huntley's going, and then I get back into this game script for sure.
I like Packers defense is like a sneaky road D too if Huntley starts. He doesn't have a lot of pocket awareness. I mean, I know that was against a good D-line last week, but I don't mind Packers as like a sneaky low-owned road D. Defense is just so hit or miss that I could see them scoring here if Huntley's at QB.
Final game on the slate, Seahawks at Rams, 26.75 for the Rams, 20.25 for the Seahawks. Rams coming off a great win. Seahawks showing some life. I'm still not a big believer in them in general. 6.5-point home favorites for the Rams. Rams D looked to be improving, getting healthy. Donald looked like the Donald we all know, and he can just absolutely take over a game. We've seen that before. He did a real good job against Arizona in doing that. And we know Seattle can struggle in that area, and Russell's not Kyler as far as being able to get away and run like he did last week to keep things alive. Penny, probably one of the hotter pickups this week and season longs. And I don't know how popular he gets in the DFS world. He obviously had a great week, but totally different defense here with the Rams. Seattle's defense is to be had, and I could see, the Rams keeping this train going, trying to build momentum, getting into the playoffs. They're obviously alive to still potentially get, a number 1 seed. I can see a lot of loading up on the Rams for sure. Afternoon game. Where are you at here?
Yeah, I'm all about the Rams this week. It's like, so you have Rodgers going against a team that gives up the second most pass yards, and now you got Stafford going against a team that gives up the most yards through the air per game. So, and the Rams just seem like they're clicking now. It took like 1 week to play a shitty team like the Jags, score a bunch of points, and then you can travel to Arizona and beat them and, again, score a bunch of points. It's just clicking right now, especially if Odell's out there. Odell's on the COVID list right now. So I want to watch that. If he's out, I kind of like Higbee a little bit more. Higbee at 4K coming back. He missed last week, but he's pretty cheap, and Higbee might be one of my favorite tight ends on the slate if Odell's going to miss. Odell, though, is one of those guys. He still has a chance to play, so it's one you got to track up until the late games. But regardless, love Stafford. Henderson's another one that could be coming back here for 5,900. He's involved in the pass game. There's been many times this year, like I said, where Stafford and Henderson can all be played together, full onslaughts of the Rams. There's unreal amount of weeks where Stafford, Henderson, Kupp all eat. You can even throw Jefferson in there or Higbee. It's just, this is the type game, I think, where they have all the momentum coming back home. I just think they can score a lot of points here. And I hope Penny is popular because of last week, because I don't think he does anything here.
Yeah, and I like the Rams are on my short list of potential plays this week. I'm not as big a believer in Seattle as some. I don't think they're fixed all of a sudden. You get the Rams at home as well, and Rams need a win, and it's divisional. You always like to beat your division up a little bit. So, and I think Henderson being back, Michelle did a good role, but he's not Henderson as far as complete out of the backfield, all that kind of stuff, explosiveness. So that only helps them. And they're going to be a popular stack. I mean, let's not kid ourselves. They're probably, top 3 in teams. The number 1 game stack is this one, 104.7. And then you get the Dolphins at Jets as number 2 right now with, that'll update. Biggest thing for this week, like we said, is going to be, being around when you decide to play, so if you're playing tonight, looks good. I'll be doing a couple Gup will come out after this, breaking down tonight's game. And then, college football, Bobby will have us covered there, but Saturday's 2-game slate and Sunday, this isn't a set your lineup the night before and forget it or hours before, because we're going to need to see a lot of the inactives, actives. Even if you know a guy's out with COVID, you still got to kind of say, well, who's going to come in for him? You not necessarily don't know. The Sunday slate isn't as bad as far as there's a lot of options and you can kind of already plan around it. Saturday, definitely, if you're wanting to get into it, you're going to have to pay attention to the Browns situation. And there's tons of key injuries on these slates for us to look out for. Any final words for you before we wrap it up?
Just check everything on Saturday morning for Saturday night. Same thing Sunday morning. We'll have all the news updated. And like you said, we'll be in the GC Warrior room just answering any questions and, making our lineups. So when we log off of here, I'm going to go start building for tonight. So I'll be in there. I know you'll be in there. So if anyone has any questions, just let us know.
Yeah, Monkey Knife Fight description, or link is in the description. I will have my plays of the week for Showdown on Cup with Gup today. And then on Coin Flip, I'll have my main slate stuff out for that. They are doing a dollar for dollar match up to $100 as well. Code is GUPS, GUPS. They have the UFC Knockout Kings jackpot that you can get into. It's on the homepage. As soon as you get in there, pick 3 fighters, all win by KO, TKO. You get a share of the jackpot. And then, of course, all the other sports going as well. I'll have my picks out on that later today. Bowls start Friday. Make sure to get all your picks in. If you're doing your pick'ems and stuff, carboncontest.com. Our boy JB is running a college football pick'em this year. He took last year off with all the unknowns of COVID and stuff with college football. He has also fired up the One and Done and Carbon Cup for PGA that starts in about 3 weeks, I believe. So go check that out if you're looking for a college bowl. And then obviously once we get closer to golf, you want to make sure you're in for that as well. Use the code HOT, get 20% off of everything, includes a 7-day free trial. I will be back later, and we will talk about Chiefs Chargers, which should be a good one. You guys have a good day. Talk to you later.
Recording stopped.